Question mark Slavic. Okay. Well, Slavic, that's what I'm going to call you. And you're about to be with Kelly and Jimmy. He, him from Colorado wants to discuss freelance awareness, which is somewhere between faith and natural law. Sounds very interesting. Slavic, you are on with Kelly and Jimmy. How can we help you today?
Hello, how are you guys?
Very well, thanks. How are you?
So, I am great. Thank you very much. My point is, when a term of religion comes with all kinds of preconceived rules, procedures, phrases, chants, or people have different ideas of what the frame of the mindset of the person who considers himself or herself to be, religious is. However, based on natural law and morality, we, in my opinion, we don't need all those pesky rules and those regulations and this is the color of the clothes you got to wear on a certain day. This is the things you got to say on first Wednesday of the spring and such and such and such. To me, all we need is to be aware what is the consequences of following or not following the natural law through the eyes of objective like morality, because humans have forgotten that morality itself is not the subject through the human rules. And the Bible, yes.
I was going to say when you say objective morality, I wasn't sure what you meant by that. And if you're going to base your morality on the Bible, right, and say this is what our morality should be, and we all agree to that's what morality is, then yes, something can be subjective or objective to that standard. But we have to agree on that standard, and that standard in itself is a subjective standard. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So I don't know that I'm not sure what you meant by objective morality was my point.
Okay. There are two sets of the mirror. There is a right and there is a wrong. Right is not causing a harm or hurt to any sentient being, and the wrong is causing a harm and hurt to any sentient being. That's very simple, right?
It's simple, but is that objective morality? Is that what you're saying?
And even that has conditions,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I would say, while I echo your enthusiasm for being able to work toward.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. For being able to work toward this idea of what we could call objective morality, right? So I have repeatedly said in the past, while I don't think morality is objective, I do think that morality can be more objective than people typically give it credit for. And that is because I think innately, most people don't want to deal with pain and suffering and torture, right? And so just by virtue of that fact, we should know that we don't want to do that to others. However, while that might be the case, that we know it might be moral to do it, we still do it, right? And we justify that with different reasons, different actions, different needs that we also consider moral. And that makes it subjective, because those needs, those requirements that cause us to create pain and suffering for others, well, those are going to differ between groups. And so that is kind of why morality could never truly be objective. And not even just between groups, but between individuals, right? So I'll give you a good example, but people think that all atheists think exactly the same. And I can tell you that we might agree nearly, across the board, or nearly 100% that there probably is no God, or at least we're not convinced, but there are even certain levels of that where we disagree. And then open that up to a plethora of other issues that people automatically associate with being an atheist. I might feel extremely differently about something than Kelly does, and vice versa. And that, that doesn't mean that because we're atheists, we have to think a certain way. I digress a little bit, but I hope my point was clear that something can never be objective because there are always going to be nuances to it. And so that's kind of where I stand on that. Kelly, I want to get your thoughts on that and then give Slavic a chance to respond. By the way, Slavic, when I introduced you, I said question mark Slavic, and that question mark actually stands for is Slavic a believer or a non-believer? And I'd like to know what it is you believe and why. And then I want to see what Kelly has to say.
I believe in Buddhism.
Okay, good. Okay. All right. So you're a believer, I guess. Kelly, what were your thoughts on that little tangent I went on?
I agree with everything you said. I would like to hear more what Slavic has to say. I want to see where he's talking about this bridge between the two. So can you go ahead, Slavic? Can you explain more about what you're saying, what you're talking about?
Yes. It's like you are being your own God. It's like because Buddha said that there is no need to worship anything, right? There is no need to follow any preset rules. However, the Book of Zen talks about what is the cause of suffering. What is why do we desire things, and what are we willing to do to obtain what we desire, and therefore to obtain what we desire must cause the least amount of suffering to us or everybody else. So that's where I would stand on my own awareness.
So what you're saying is that sometimes we have to curb what we really want because it can constrict what another person really wants. Is that what you're saying?
We just have to be very careful not to make others unhappy with our actions.
I get that. I get that. But like, just say I want to do something simple, like I want to go fishing today, right? But by doing that, the person that I work with now has to do twice as much work, which is not going to make them happy. But that was a consequence I wasn't thinking of when I just made this simple decision to go fishing. Do you see what I mean? How is it that how do we make sure that we're not harming people in ways that we haven't thought about or that we don't intentionally want to do? I mean, we can go through life not intentionally hurting people, but we can hurt people anyway. So how do we try to stop that harm from being done? Or is it even important to try to stop that harm?
Well, the honesty of being open about what our beliefs are and what we want in life is to communicate with other people and tell them, hey, do you think this action of mine will have consequences on how you feel towards me?
But should we remain silent about who we are or not do the things that we want to do because other people might be slighted? I mean, I get it. But there's got to be a line that is drawn. I mean, go ahead, Slavic.
The system of religions and of beliefs has been known to break up families due to disagreements of how should we go about being moral. I think that's a fair point to make, right?
I think that is a fair point. I think that's been substantiated over and over again. A lot of us have differences with our families. Not necessarily me, but I know people who have, just don't talk to their family members anymore because of what they believe. But let me ask you this. Why should that person not be vocal about what they believe, or not even be vocal? Why should they just not believe it if it's going to make somebody else happy, right? So, for example, I kind of dealt with this a little bit when I came out as an atheist, and I use the word coming out not disrespectfully to people who have come out in other ways, which of course can have much more harsh implications. But I think they're similar, right? Because when you come up in a society that is largely religious, and then you identify yourself as the one that is not, that society can kind of cave in on you a little bit. And so should I have not been vocal about who I am, right? If it made me feel good, because I wanted those people to be more comfortable, like I shouldn't have to hold back with who I am. Go ahead.
It's about being a little selfish in the right kind of way, because you got to do what is best for you. And
I agree with you there.
But that would work against what you were saying before, though. Sometimes, right? That's the point I was trying to make. What is best for you and what you need, sometimes what you literally need to do, is going to hurt other people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm asking you if it's not important, or how do we deal with the fact that these other people are going to be unintentionally hurt?
Okay. I think it's more important about how I feel and how I go about what is moral, because with time that other person will see that my action so many months ago or so many years ago was the right action, and sooner or later they might come aboard.
I don't think so. I want to step in there and I have to push back on that really hard, because there are some people that will never accept. Yes, listen. There are people out there that will never accept their own children. They will never accept their own brother, their own sister, what have you, because of who they are, whether that be them being a homosexual, or them being an atheist, or them wanting to marry somebody of a different faith or a different ethnicity or a different race, rather. We see time and time again people disowning their own family members and standing their ground on it and never swaying, and families breaking up over that, simply because that person who wanted to be themselves, that person that wanted to stand up and say, this is who I am, is not being accepted. And instead of loving that person, we do see their friends, their family, their society ostracize them. This is, I don't even know where to start with this. I mean, this is common throughout history. This is common in our society today. It's common in politics of today versus the politics of you name what era. I mean, you take your pick, and we could point to a situation where somebody's beliefs led them to be, ostracized. Not only that, but disparaged in other ways, killed, right? Tortured. And it's something that we need to avoid. And that person standing up and saying, well, this is what I need to do because this is who I am, that is moral to them, but it is immoral to the entire society around them. And they actually put themselves at risk. That is where those two ideas clash. And I would like to know, Slavic, how you disagree with that. I think that I can point to a number of examples taking place today where that's absolutely happening.
So let me turn the mirror on you, please. And let me ask you this. Should I suffer, because I see my parents maybe once a year, for 3 or 4 weeks, right?
Okay.
So should I suffer 3 Sundays, per year and follow my parents to church because I want to make them happy?
I would say that you need to do what is good for you. Okay. And I don't think you're necessarily suffering. I mean, let's just dial that down a little bit. If you have family that you love and you don't want to hurt them,
of course,
and you say, yeah, of course. I mean, hey, I'm glad to hear that. If you have family that you love, you don't want to hurt them, you don't want to disappoint them, and you feel like, you know what, this isn't something that I need to quote unquote fall on my sword for, right? Or plant my flag on. I don't need to fight this battle. I can suck it up and I can do church three weeks, and then we can all go about our business. However, there might be some people out there that say to themselves, I just can't live like this anymore. And it might not be going to church, right? It might be being in a family or in a group that, I don't know, is racist or hates the LGBTQ community. When that person inside is, somebody who is not racist or is maybe a member of the LGBTQ, and they're screaming, they're the ones suffering on the inside because they can't be who they want to be, right? And so I don't think and I don't mean any disrespect here, Slavic, but I don't think that your situation there is, comparable to the same level as the situation that I just explained. However, that's your choice to make. Okay. And if you need to make a decision, well, then that's on you. And you know what? I think your family should be supportive. Now, they might not. And it sounds to me like you're saying, well, I'm in a situation where if I don't do this, my family might not love me the same way they used to. And that sucks. But you know what? Oh man, I hate to say this, but we are born into these families, right? We don't always ask for family members. Sometimes they're just thrown at us, and sometimes it just doesn't work out. You sometimes have to go your own way. And so I've gone on a little bit of a tangent. Kelly, do you have any response that you want to give to Slavic and maybe reflect on my thoughts there?
One of the things I want to say is that these are things that I don't think that in the big scope of things that we need to worry about. First off, I don't believe in karma, which is a big part of your Buddhist beliefs, I'm pretty sure. So I don't believe in reincarnation, so I can't believe in karma because that's, it has to do with reincarnation. But I'm not really worried about the unintentional problems that may arise from my own actions. I don't go out of my way to cause harm to people. I don't try to cause harm to people. And I don't worry about, like I said, these side things that may happen. If I hear about them and somebody was seriously hurt by something I did, unintentionally hurt by something I did, I am more than willing to make amends for that and to do what I can to make it right. But these are things that I just can't worry about because I can't control them. I have no control over it. So that to me, it's just like a senseless thing to worry about, if that makes any sense. It's senseless. Does that make sense?
Can I have just a one quick side, kind of a side question?
Sure.
Why you don't believe in karma?
Because I don't believe in reincarnation.
It's pretty simple.
I don't believe in reincarnation.
Okay.
You don't have karma without reincarnation. Or are you talking about the New Age? I always say New Age is one word, so it rhymes with sewage. Or are you talking about the New Age definition of karma, where it's like instant, where like as you reap, so shall you sow, or as you sow, shall you reap? Sorry. Because karma has to do with what your station in life is going to be in your next life. It has nothing to do with what happens to you now in this life.
Okay. So let's make it very simple. For every action, there is equal and opposite reaction, right? This is the law of physics. So if I hurt an animal or if I make a human cry or something, sooner or later, and it's usually much, much later, something, and I quote unquote something, because I don't know what it is, something will pay me back.
Yeah, well, what you're talking about is a simple law of probability. If you spend your life as an asshole, eventually somebody's going to be an asshole back to you, because nobody likes assholes, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but that's not karma. That's just humans being humans. And I think if you're nice and you're positive, you'll get more positive feedback. Sure, there's some people out there that might try and take advantage of your positivity or your kindness and maybe see it as a weakness. But generally speaking, people remember how they're treated, and they respond to how they're treated. So I think it's very important to try and be nice to people and treat everybody with respect, with dignity. I spoke earlier in the show about like being American. In our culture, right? We have this kind of culture that's born out of maybe religion and individuality because of the way that we kind of rebelled against, I don't know, dictatorships and Catholicism and things like that. And we have this kind of like underdog, individualistic, that kind of mindset, right? But we also have this mindset that is like administrative, where we guarantee equal rights and equal protections to everybody, no matter what. And I would say that, if you kind of just follow that line of thinking, where, you go through your everyday interactions with people with the assumption that, like, regardless of who you are or what you're like, I'm going to treat you with a manner of respect and dignity, I think that you're more likely to get that back. How is that? We don't need a God for that, right? We don't need a Buddha for that, do we? Or excuse me. I'm taking Buddha out of context, but kind of purposely, because Buddha is not a deity. I would say that incorrectly, Buddha has been deified, right, by people who don't really understand the philosophy of Buddhism, in the same way that karma is kind of incorrectly understood as well, just the way Kelly did. So before I keep going, why don't you clarify? Go ahead.
So would you agree that human brain, human psyche needs an anchor to hold on to be based on, that need a set of rules? This is what we should not do, because if we do this, the consequence of such action will be this action, right? And I agree, we don't need a religion for that, but Buddhism in a way does create this anchor in your psyche, to something to anchor your own morality to, right?
Why can't we just use secular laws for that?
And why can't I just say, I know the difference between right and wrong? Like, I know what's right because I know what I would want to happen to me, and I know what's beneficial for me and my family and my loved ones, and I would want to bestow that on somebody to the maximum ability possible. Like, why couldn't I just say that? Why do I have to come up with this theoretical anchor? I don't even know, I don't even know if that really applies, across the board to everybody. Like, I don't even know if anybody would understand that to be the same thing, an anchor.
Because human nature is trained from the childhood onward to follow something, right?
I don't know that that's true. That might have been true for you, but it certainly wasn't true for me.
We follow our parents. I mean, that's for sure. I would say in most cases, we follow the generation that came before us.
I've always been real rebellious throughout my life. I've never been a follower. So
soon in life, when we are young children, we are introduced to one set of rules or the other set of rules, right?
Correct.
I mean, kids are not just let out on the street and left to their own devices, right? I mean, kids are taught some kind of a rules.
I mean, some are, though. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I just, before we get too carried away, like, you're talking as if, well, all children are not left to their own devices. Some children are actively out there raising themselves, and it's unfortunate. Go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah, I was just agreeing with that. There are children out there raising themselves. I've seen it. When I was in the military, I was stationed on the southern border of the United States, and we would go down into Mexico, and you would see 8-year-old kids sleeping in doorways all night long because they had nowhere to go. The only people they had to rely on was themselves.
Slavic, let me interject here, because I worry that we're getting like a little far off topic and going down a rabbit hole, so to speak. But what I want to say is, it sounds to me like you are trying to create a blanket policy that works for everybody, right? And that goes back to our original discussion about objective morality, right? You're trying to say, well, there is a set of rules that works for all of us, and we should all understand what those rules. I don't necessarily agree with that. And I don't see any reason so far that you've given me to believe that. So you called in and you said something about you wanted to talk about freelance awareness. I don't know that I got a definition of that, but it seems like this call just went on about objective morality, to which we've been talking about this for a little while now, and we haven't really gotten anywhere. I'm not convinced that there is an objective morality. I don't know, Kelly, where do you stand on this so far?
I think I made my stance that we can say something is objective to a subjective moral standard that we can agree upon. We can set a moral standard that standard will be subjective. But if we use that as the standard, we can then judge whether an action is objective or subjective to that standard. So is there a complete objective morality? No, because any standard that we use is going to be subjective.
But there is only one way to tell if somebody is hurt or not, right?
I don't know that that's true either.
I don't know that that's true either.
What do you mean? Clarify.
Well, if my action is a wrong action, it's pretty obvious. I mean, there is no, there is no mystery, between what is right and what is wrong.
Is it obvious to you what's being wrong about it? Is it obvious to you?
I was always told that the Bible had no gray areas. There was no in between. It was either yes or it was a no.
Yeah, I get that. I've heard the same thing from a lot of Christians. But what I'm asking you is, if a certain action was immoral, it was a bad action, would you know that it was a bad action before you did it?
Well, I think you got me here.
Well, let me ask you this. It's not about getting you. It's not about getting you.
To get you. I'm just trying to get you to open up your mind and see that there might be other ways to look at what you're saying. I'm not trying to get you. I'm not trying to win or anything. I'm just trying to show you that maybe there might be other ways to look at it that you haven't thought about. That's all.
Yeah, Slavic, your claim, like, if you make an action and that action hurts somebody, then that was a wrong action. But what if that person was trying to get into your home and you were protecting your family and then you hurt them? Well, you could take the position that that was a moral action. But what if that person that was getting in your home felt like they absolutely had to get into your home and harm you in order to protect themselves? Well, that was a moral action. I mean, it's impossible to get toward this idea of objective morality when there are so many different ways of defining morality. None of us are going to look at it the same ever. And so it's a tricky subject. I would agree with you, though, that most of us probably don't want to feel pain or suffer. And, to the max extent possible, we should try not to do that to other people, regardless of what our beliefs are or what their beliefs are. And I think I can conclude there. So I'll kick it over to Kelly for some closing comments, and then Slavic. I really appreciate your call, and thanks for being with us today.
Closing comment, I guess, is just that always remember that there's probably always another side to everything, to every action you do, a side that you don't know about, that you may never know about. That your actions may have better consequences than you were counting on. They may have more negative consequences than you were counting on. And if you don't intend to hurt people, you try your best to do good. That's about all you can do. And that is the best you can do, is do your best. So don't worry about the other things. Just do your best.
I do appreciate you guys very much, and I thank you for taking my call.
Yeah, no problem. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah.
You should definitely give us a call back, and keep watching our shows. And thank you very much for the call.
Yeah, thanks for calling in. Appreciate it. Interesting call.
Yeah, that was good. I mean, it took on a direction I didn't see it going, but it's always important to kind of talk about that, because when it comes to discussing religion and what's right and what's wrong, there really is no way to kind of define right and wrong for everybody. We're all just kind of in this space trying to get along, trying to share this tiny world for the little amount of time that we have. And we just kind of got to do our best and make sure that we're not the cause for somebody else's suffering, but we can't really avoid that all the time, and it's unfortunate. Recognizing that, though, I think is the first step to that. So, great call. Appreciate it, Slavic. So Yeah, go ahead.
I think a lot of people look at Buddhism when they come out of Christianity. I think Slavic was one of those people because he mentioned growing up with the Bible and now he was looking at Buddhism. And I did the same thing. And I've talked to dozens and dozens of people who have done the same thing as well. And it's kind of appealing. It's an atheistic religion. There's no God that you have to worship in it. But I think in the long run, most people who are actually looking for something better will end up giving that up, just like I did as well. So
yeah, hey, you know, I find that interesting as well, because Buddhism is actually, and maybe somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Buddhism developed as a rejection to the original Hindu faiths, if I'm not mistaken, right? So I think it was Brahmanism that was I guess oppressive to a certain group. I'm not an expert on the subject, but out of that kind of came Buddhism. This idea that, you know what, we don't have to believe in any of these deities. And I always find that interesting, because when a religion goes wrong, you end up with the birth of a different kind of religion. Now, there's some what do you call it? Disagreement on if Buddhism is actually a religion, but it's at least a response to a religion. And in the same light, we could talk to Protestantism and the way that was a rejection of Catholicism, you know, and Catholicism, you know, where it failed to take care of all of its people. You kind of got this other group that stepped up and said, hey, you know, we're not going to do this anymore. And so I always find that interesting.